Hello, everybody, and hopefully it is a very swift welcome back to the Football Uncensored podcast with myself, Rob Kirton, and John Sitton. At the close of the last episode, we speaking briefly about the bottom of the table and the promoted clubs, but also a bit about Everton and Sean Dyche is where we closed. We just want to pick up quickly with a mention for Ipswich, who had a good result at Fulham at the weekend. They've had a couple of wins in their last 4 or 5 games over the holiday period as well. And John, they seem to be the only promoted side putting up, well, any kind of a fight, really.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him credit where it's due. I mean, they look like a really well organised, well drilled side. They weren't getting the breaks early on in the year. Um, the club as a whole, you've got to give them credit as well. The hierarchy, they've given him time to keep getting on with it. Um, hopefully the tide's turning. It looks to very much to be the case with regards to their performances, and who'd have thought with the run they was on. Or the results they've been having, Fulham, that they've been like over the moon and delighted and hanging on for a point at home.
Yeah, they were as well,
Yeah,
I thought,
yeah, yeah. So
definitely.
yeah, good. I mean, you got that was pretty significant for me. That I didn't really know that because I said when he first burst on the scene, sure it come across as a bit of a smart ass again, but the lap is a massive plus. He's got so much ability. Married a bit of deceptive pace when he gets going, and very powerful. City have got a buyback clause, which is interesting.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it might be a case of watch this space if things start going. If they need reinforcements up there, or if someone else is looking at him to pluck him out. I think it'd be a blinding buy for Arsenal. I do. In terms of his presence, his abilities, all round ability, his link up play, coming into the false nine position, coming into the 10 position, getting on the half turn. Once he gets going, he can get past players. Very powerful, big presence, good foundation to build off of. If you punch it into him or clip it into him, dink it into him, he can kill it with anything. Chest, fire, side foot, instep, set play up, and seen him score some really good goals. A couple of them spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah, he's had a decent season. I think it's 8 goals so far, and I think it's more or less half their goals. So that's what I
Mm.
said. I'm nicking that from Match of the Day. Apologies. But also on Match of the Day, Shearer gave Delap a good G, didn't he? And so he knows a little bit about being a centre forward. So if you're getting praise off him, I'd say he's probably doing all right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a bit. Yeah, yeah. Top
But,
top centre forward, wasn't he? In his day, without a doubt.
yeah. Buyback clause for City, we'll see. We might touch on the transfer window in a little bit if we get time. You mentioned the manager, Kieran McKenna, and the board, they've given him time, etc.
Yeah.
He's certainly another one of those who seems, I mean, it sounds a daft thing to say. He seems to have his idea of how he wants to play. Everyone's got an idea of how they want to play. This is a question of implementing it and maintaining it, isn't it? But he seems to be very much welded to we're going to play like this, and they haven't really changed much as far as I can tell. And it might be starting to bear a little bit of fruit. Another manager who is very much welded to the way he plays or wants to play, certainly at the moment, and his first season and a bit in charge is Ange Postecoglou at Spurs. And it's fair to say the last few weeks or so haven't been going brilliantly for him. You touched on it a bit in the previous episode, but we just want to dedicate another few minutes to it now.
Yeah, well, when they win, he's pretty laid back and make this and make that, and then it's make this, but in a spiky way. I thought his interview was pretty bizarre, and the interviewer, to his credit, tried to pin him down, but he wouldn't have none of it. So, what was he talking about? All things being equal, we'd have won that game. Is it like the amount of injuries he's got? Is it the depth of the squad? Is it those two? Or was it the couple of the refereeing decisions? If you play winning football, you don't need to rely on officials. And that's what I was on about with regards to little habits and being precise with your passing because they got
Mm.
caught. They got caught with it. They were actually in possession, comfortable throwing, and had it pinched off them, and then it come out round the other side and in, and then into the front and back, and then Gordon and he slotted. There's a lot of time now, but if you do it, if players are willing to be educated and listen from a very young age, the little habits should go all the way through your career, and little things like that you should automatically know. Uh, you know, how to throw it, where to throw it, and then it's gone into his body. He's got to make it stick. He's got to get his body in, and to the extent where he's so thoughtful, he drives the defender backwards, makes it stick, and then sets it off with quality. Um, and then the other one, they played their way out really well, and then it was a bit of a lazy ball, or not precise, and he's ended up controlling it with sort of the toe end of his boot, and it's gone out, and then he's got, oh, okay, there's no one in close proximity, but then he got close down, he's gone to nick it again with the outside of his boot to get out, and that's when it's caught Bruno's arm. So is he having a scream up about that? Or it could be all of the above, because it definitely ain't got depth for squad, and they've definitely got a lot
No,
of injuries, and yeah, I mean Solanke, he's brings quite a bit to the party, but I don't know, 50 million, I don't know. Um,
it's
and then you look at the rest of it, they rely heavily on him and Son and
it's
Johnson on the other side. He's pitched in with a few,
yeah.
but again, I think they get very exposed at the back.
It's fair to say they've got a lot of injuries. They're not the only club. Again, something we might touch on if we get time with a couple of other teams, but they're we spoke about in the previous episode. Both the first choice centre halves are out. Um, I think they were down. What's that? Their third keeper they played yesterday or
Yeah,
Saturday against Newcastle. Had a pretty good game, to be fair. And they've
yeah.
signed supposedly another keeper today or over the weekend. It's just to me, Postecoglou. You said about his interview. It's a bit of a concern because he seems to be kind of going the same way as O'Neill did for Wolves, Russell Martin did for Saints, and when they start to proper go on a downer in these interviews, it seems to be a bit of a death knell recently. But I mean, I can't really see Spurs being in them at this stage of the season. But yeah, who knows?
No, I mean, Jose actually, the Portuguese version, got him to a cup final when they sacked him the week before the final, didn't they?
Yeah,
Who,
fair
who else
point.
you got? Who,
Strange.
who else you got? Conte.
Conte.
Nuno, I thought he was treated poorly, and he was in the midst of a load of like grief and a bit of a den of iniquity at the time. If, for want of a better phrase, I'm not being disparaging, but it's just there was all this turmoil going on, and then it's proved that if he's in the right environment, he's done a good job at Wolves. He's doing a very good job at Forest. Um, if the working environment is good, then there are no excuses. But I thought those three, if you start showing them the door, at least two of them out of the three, all three good, but at least two out of the three proven track record trophy winners, probably world class coaches in their time.
Mm.
I don't know where it leaves. I mean, they said to me, a lot of my pals in Scotland, got a few pals in Glasgow, and they were telling me you're at a treat. It's some of the best football they'd ever seen under him at Celtic. Um, you're
Well,
in
it's
for a
not
big,
dull, that's for sure.
yeah. So but he's suffering from this ideology. You've got to think it's like, what happens next? He was playing with these inverted fullbacks and so on. Well, when you lose the ball, where's the space? And then they showed that they get stretched easily. And I think if you're going to do it, maybe do it on the side of the ball and rotate accordingly, because they definitely look like they need insurance. At least without the Romero and Van der Ven when they're not present.
Mm. I was
And
just looking at their results over the last few weeks. I mean, just before Christmas, they got tubbed by Liverpool 6-3, lost to Forest 1-0, drew at home to Wolves, and then obviously the Newcastle game at the weekend that we've spoken about. So prior
that was
to
a big.
that,
Newcastle was a big one, because I think Newcastle could edge someone out, could edge
mm,
one of the London clubs out. Like I said, I wouldn't write City off. You've got Liverpool there. You've got decent lead, bit of breathing space. Um, You've got Forest up there knocking on the door. Can they maintain it? You've got Arsenal and Chelsea. You got I think Newcastle are probably the next best out of them. And maybe could edge one of them out. I can't see Spurs getting any European place in any way, shape, or form, which would be after the initial euphoria of like a couple of runs they had last year, but a little bit this year. I think it's come back to them. Their inconsistencies come back to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like I
Spurs
say,
and
I wouldn't write City off. So basically, you've got Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Forest, Newcastle, even Villa, Bournemouth. I mean, what's a job he's done?
well, there's 8 teams
Unbelievable.
you just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But seven of them, I think seven of them are in front of Spurs at the moment.
I think more than 7 of them. I'm checking them out, but
Yeah,
just quick, since you mentioned Bournemouth, yeah, what a job he's done. I think they've won. They're unbeaten in about 8 or 9.
yeah,
Won about 6 of them, I think. Narrow win at the weekend, beat Everton 1-0, but deserved to beat him. I think that was a case of knock, 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 and they finally got
yeah.
the
Felt
goal.
felt sorry for Gary O'Neill initially. Um, I, I was hoping it sort of blow because he was an English manager, it'd blow up in their face. Um, he squeaked home, improved it, and now they've got a fantastic collective and good system that suits them. And they're playing for each other, playing for the club, playing for him, playing for themselves. Most importantly, they look like they've got an appetite for it. So who knows? Maybe in the preparation.
Could be. I mean, I was reading the report this afternoon, the Bournemouth Everton game, and I think the journos. I mean, the article and the report was basically what a cracking job Bournemouth is. Iriola, excuse pronunciation, has done at Bournemouth, and how much longer is Dyche going to stay at Everton? That was the gist of it.
Yeah.
But the bit you mentioned about getting the system and the way of playing for Bournemouth, one telling point in the article was because they were focusing on Everton's lack of goals, and they were saying Bournemouth obviously sold their main goal scorer for 60 odd million to Spurs, and this season they've gone on and improved and scored a few more goals at this stage of the season than they had last already. So
Mm.
that's that's got to be down to the coaching, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that and it's giving the players the opportunity. So finding a system that suits them. I mean, very quickly going back to Dyche. I mean, I can't see him ousting him. I just think it would be the right thing for him to make yourself available for another job. Once they survive, if they survive, they should survive with, like I say, the Dyche factor. Then I think he's got to think of himself again with the benefit of hindsight and experience. Think of himself because he can't keep pulling rabbits out of hats, and then it will be a new era, new ground. Who knows? Maybe a Hollywood name, but they've already gone with a couple of them.
They
Uh,
have got.
they did, and
I've,
the club was basically all over the gaff at the time. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one to watch, without a doubt. Um,
yeah. I
I
think you're right. Sadly, they'll go. I think no matter what happens, I mean, certainly if they go down, I don't think they will. I agree with you. I think there'll be 3 clubs below them
yeah,
at least. But I think no matter what, I think and he probably realises it as well. Like you say, new ground, new owners. It's not a great equation for a
no,
manager struggling down that end of the league, is it?
no, that's right. But then, where the others are concerned, who you're talking about, you've got to be careful what you wish for. You've only got to look at West Ham. So you've got to identify the needs of the squad. Um, they haven't had. He hasn't been allowed. They've been under financial restrictions. He hasn't been able to invest and chop and change players or get players in that he might need, or that without shadow of a doubt, he needs. But you've only got to look at West Ham with regards to like someone else who's very pragmatic, and he absolutely squeezed the last drop out of the lemon or out of the
Mm.
orange. He absolutely squeezed the last drop out of it. And then
Or out of the claret.
yeah, or out of thing, or out of the yeah, just wrung it out the bottle of claret. Yeah, and even won him a trophy as well. Reached a
Yeah.
couple of respectable finishes. I think one season was as high as seventh. They don't look anywhere near that now. They brought a new guy in, and they just look. Sorry to say, it, they look like I've said it many times before. Got a lot of pals West Ham supporters. They look shambolic, and there's
Mm.
not one area of the field where you think, yeah, that's all right. Now I can move on to that. There's not one area of the field where you say, you know what, I'm happy, I'm satisfied. That's a blinding little unit, and let's build from that. They look so fragmented, it's unbelievable. And there's been games where they look like they've met each other at 10-3.
Yeah. There's a lot of noise today about the manager, and I think one news outlet leaked that he's been sacked, and
Okay.
another one, but I don't think he has. I think he's hanging on literally by a thread.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have a look at the news after we finish recording, but we want to move on because we did speak about West Ham in the previous episode. Spurs, you said you can't see them finishing the European places. Completely agree, but they are still in three cup competitions. It's the League Cup semi-finals this week. Obviously,
Yeah.
FA Cup starts at the weekend. We might get onto that, and they're still in. I think they're in the Europa League, not in Chelsea are in the conference, aren't they? Spurs are in the Europa League, so they're still in three cup competitions.
Yeah.
Maybe they could sneak one of those, but we're going to move on to their North London neighbours. I know you want to talk about Arsenal. Um, 1-1 at the weekend away to Brighton. They've
Not great.
been
Yeah, not great.
not great. They've sort of been scratching about a little bit of late. Um, I mean, they won away at Brentford, which is no mean feat. Yeah, so they narrowly beat Ipswich, and their other result just prior to Christmas. Okay, they had a 5-1 away win at Palace, so two good away
Mm.
wins. Not great yesterday. Narrowly beat Ipswich, only just beat Ipswich, and obviously an injury to their talisman Saka. But how d where do you see them going for the rest of the season, John? Just briefly.
Yeah, he's going to be, goes without saying, there's probably state ministry of stating the obvious. Loads of people have said it'd be a big miss, but they can compensate for it quite comfortably, I would think, because of the way they play. It's not as if they're like years ago, or an individual flash of brilliance, someone like Mo Salah at Liverpool or Ireland, a little through ball, a bit of combination play with Foden or Grealish, and then up back and a little one through and he slots. Or I don't see that at Arsenal. If you look at the way Arsenal play, they play as a block. That they move up the field as a block. Right, so they'll go through the three thirds, very a la City, get people around the ball, minimum of three options. Um, they won't go up wide, whipped in, diving header. It won't be that kind. You'll see, you have seen without a doubt. Just before someone picks me up on it, you have seen loads of times where like it might have been a dink from White, or Zivchenko, or who's the other one I like, Martinelli or Saka in particular, and they go, but when they come inside and he'll dink it in, and someone Havertz will come in and score with an head or whatever, you know what I mean? But I'm talking about before that, the way they play up through the thirds as a block and get people around the ball before they isolate somebody 1v1 or get an overload so that they can get the crossing. Um, so they should be able to compensate for it. Um, yeah, but I'll still maintain um, they've improved. I'm not sure because on the face of it, it looks like they have, but I'm not sure. I thought it was much of a muchness with the goalkeeping situation. They've definitely improved the back four, or back three, whatever system they play at the time. They've always had a strong midfield. It's probably been enhanced by the fact Odegaard's come back. But I've always maintained they lack like a massive presence up front. When I think sort of years gone by. Let's pluck them out, Chelsea, thing, not being biased, but say like Drogba, Diego Costa, they're like a massive presence who could go marauding on his own and hunt the ball down and make life difficult and be a good target, good foundation. Also, the ability to threaten the back with pace and power. I don't see that with Arsenal, and that's why they play the way they play. If they added that, um, it might give them another dimension. Um, yeah,
As you meant, as sorry, John, as you mentioned that, then obviously the January window is open.
yeah,
If you're Arsenal, say you've got the ability to spend, And I mean, no one knows exactly what it is these days with FFP or whatever the initials are about the financial fair play.
Yeah.
Um, do you do you stick or twist in the January window? I mean, historically, obviously prices go up because clubs tend to
Mm,
demand the higher fees because they know the buyers are probably more
mm.
desperate to buy. So do you stick and go for it if you're Arteta?
Well, if it's Arsenal, he'd probably stick. They'd probably stick with what they got. I think there's a couple of outstanding, quite a few outstanding individuals out there. I like the guy at Wolves. I like the guy at the Mexican at Fulham. I like the lap who I've said I think he'd be tailor made for Arsenal.
Hmm.
They lost out on Tony, or they didn't sign him for whatever reason. So they probably stick, and it's one of the reasons I always liked Arsenal. Do it like I was an Arsenal supporter as a kid, and then you go into the game and you're just worried about supporting your teammates and the shirt you're wearing and doing well for the club you're playing for. You know what I mean? But one thing I've always liked about Arsenal is they try and do it the right way. They don't reach beyond their grasp. They do it within their financial capability, and always sort of done it with that in mind. Sort of conservative Bank of England club. I don't see any reason why they'd change that. Although obviously fees have gone up, wages have gone up, which is why they built the new ground um, to increase revenue. But I don't see them going outside of their budget capabilities. Um, but it's no doubt he'd be looking round. That's, who am I to give him ideas? But yeah, I mean, you're looking to strengthen on a weekly basis, I would think. It's one of them times where they hold your feet to the fire, yeah, in terms of transfer fees. So he'd probably stick with what he's got. Jesus has come back, had a couple of good games,
Yeah,
and the way they play suits him. I just think someone else would give him a different dimension.
I agree. Again, for what it's worth, you say who are you to tell advise Arteta and
Yeah. If you look at
who am
Liverpool, Rob, if
who
you
am I
look
to
at
who
Liverpool,
am I to advise you?
well, sort of, yeah. Although I did say 3 decades ago that there should be specialist coaches, like set piece coaches and um, defensive coaches and forward coaches, and there's sort of clubs are starting to over the last couple of seasons sort of go that route. But
Arsenal certainly are.
yeah, most certainly have. Yeah, and they've reaped the dividends in terms of the set piece side of it. Yeah. What I will say, if you contrast it very quickly with Liverpool, they can do both. They can do like one get out ball, and that's it. They'll do damage. They'll get in behind you and do damage. So they can suck teams in and hit on the counter with one pass. Um, they can do like they can get it wide and whip quality crosses in. They can do it through combination play with from players who have got fantastic ability.
I was sat this afternoon. I was just sort of going through a few things in my head about um, the episodes for this evening. I was thinking about centre forwards and well, the January window. And I was mentally going through the teams in the league and do they play with a conventional centre forward or is it a bit of a mix and match or even the dreaded false nine? And I think I went through and probably easily 75, 80, probably more percent. I worked out they do play with a conventional centre forward, and Arsenal are probably one of the ones, maybe two or three teams that haven't got what you would call an old-fashioned number nine. Jesus isn't a centre forward, a fully fledged. Havertz isn't a fully fledged centre forward. Liverpool, you mentioned as a comparison, they've got they've got the Salahs and the Luis Diaz's who can seemingly play all across the front line, but they have got whatever you think of him, they have got a number nine as well. They have got a centre forward,
Yeah.
Darwin Nunes. Was he
They go
worth 80?
like they like I say, as well as going up in through the 3/3 in blocks with blocks of players around the ball. They tend to go narrow, wide, and then it becomes narrower as they get around the opposition penalty area, unless it's stretched, and in which case they leave it wide and then whip the necessary crossing. Um, I think there's probably only one formation really you can play to try and do well against Arsenal if you've got players of comparable ability. But it's too many teams that with their staff, or they don't. They choose to stick with their ideology. But if you play a certain way against Arsenal, you can get a result against them because of that lack of um, those lack of options. Like I said, with regards to players threatening the back up the middle with pace and power, or presence in the box, um, or the combination play. They're good with that. They tend to be reliant on the same players though.
Um, we I was going to ask you a question. We've kind of answered it already. We've mentioned Bowen's injury at West Ham. We mentioned Saka's injury at Arsenal. We said about the Spurs injuries, but Saka and Bowen being pretty much the talisman of their two
Mm,
sides.
yeah.
I think you've kind of answered it already without directly answering it. Who would be the bigger miss for their club? I think you're probably going to say West Ham, aren't you?
Um,
Going to suffer more for missing Bowen
I
than
think they will.
Arsenal.
Yeah, I think they will. I think he brings he brings so much to him. And you look at it now, I think he also look, he plays at a great tempo and with like appetite and aggression. What I mean by that, I mean like in the right way, like a passion. He plays with a passion, and at the same time, it sounds contradictory. I think he's got steadying influence over everybody else, and they're like at the moment chickens with their heads cut off. So I think Arsenal will be able to cope better without Saka than West Ham will without Bowen. Yeah,
I tend to agree. We've got about 5 minutes left of this session.
mm,
Shot through once again. Um, FA Cup this weekend,
yeah,
just quickly.
yeah,
I think there's league games after it in midweek. But FA Cup this weekend,
yeah,
third round, always, it's always known as it's the big day, and you get the giant killings or not. You get the non-league sides, you get the little teams that have got through. It's their big day. There is a few standout fixtures, big versus small, as it were. And most of the clubs we mentioned, Spurs are away to Tamworth, Chelsea home to Morecambe, Liverpool home to Accrington. Anyone my age will probably be going through a well-known advert in their head at this stage,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
or older than me.
yeah,
And Man City home to Salford, which is
yeah.
basically
There
Man
won't be
United.
any upsets there.
No, I very much
None of
doubt. I
them
think,
fight. It's killed it for the small clubs. It's
yeah,
killed it. You know what I mean? In terms of the getting the games over and done with and
no replays.
replays and no replays. And it's funny because when you think about the scream up about fixture congestion, and
Mm,
they've done all these things at one end, and then what they've done, they've topped it up at the other end. So
yeah,
you've got your European Nations League, you've got your Conference League, you've got your Europa, whereas used to be like European Cup for the league winners. So they've created mini leagues for that. It used to be the European Cup for the league winners, European Cup Winners' Cup for the FA Cup winners or the comparable tournament in whatever country, and then UEFA Cup for the also rans who maybe came third or fourth. Right now, you've got this elongated um, Champions League. You've got the elongated. You've got the what's its name? You've got the Europa League. You've got the Conference League. So any what doesn't matter what they do at this end in terms of like looking after players in their respective countries, all the fixtures get tacked on at the other end. You know what I mean? Even with regards to international friendlies and the European Nations League. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
and a bigger World Cup, by the way. So um,
You've
I
also got the
don't,
World
I
Club
don't
Cup.
quite understand it because whatever one lot do, like say in our case the FA, whatever they do, or the Premier League, whatever they Premier League cut the league from 22 to 20 because we were affected the year I took over at Orient because it had a knock-on effect and four clubs from each division went down instead of
Mm,
the normal two or the normal or three in the divisions below. It was four, and so it had a knock-on effect. So they even cut the Premier League by two clubs and four fixtures. Um, so it's all a bit of a contradiction.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, they've also got the World Club Cup at the end of this season, which a few of our big guns are in.
Yeah,
It's just crazy.
have you seen the groups?
Yeah,
They'll be playing until June or like June 2026. I mean, it's madness. So whatever they do, the thing, whatever's said in the media, No, yeah, let's do an article about this again, or let's talk about this again. Fixture congestion and the pile up at Christmas, and one manager said, actually, it was in the championship. So I got players. He said they've got through 90 minutes. He said, I don't know how they've done it. I'm paraphrasing Chris Wilder. Great result again. Pleased for him. I
Mm.
like him. I like the cloth he's cut from. Same as Dyche, I like the cloth he's cut from because they're honest. They come across as honest men, honest managers, and that's all I ever asked for in a manager. And it made me want to play for him. I like the cloth they're cut from. But paraphrasing him, he said, like, I've got players out there. He said they shouldn't have even played, but said they've somehow managed to get through 90 minutes and grind out a result. Um, yeah, so you're going to keep having a debate until something definitive's done. But then when it is done, I'm warning you now. I've just highlighted all the reasons, all the contradictions. Why? Well, what's the point if you're adding another 20 fixtures at international and European level?
I'm sure all the big boys will go on their far-reaching tours at the end of the season as well. Those that aren't in the World Club Cup, they'll be off to Malaysia, China, Japan, the States,
Yeah,
Australia, whatever. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
just anyway, let's move on quickly. He said about just very quickly. We've got a couple of minutes left. The Championship, a few managerial changes there over the last couple of weeks. Mark
yeah,
Robins back in a job. I think
yeah.
he's
Good for
landed
him.
at Stoke.
Yep,
Um, your one of your old teams, Millwall,
yep,
Neil Harris has gone, and I think Alex Neil
yep,
taken over at Millwall.
yep,
And obviously, the big headline, what it'll be, was Wayne Rooney parting company with Plymouth.
yep.
You know, the whole mutual, etc., etc. But I think it's probably safe to say the board were happy to part terms. I did read that he's waived any compo. I mean, obviously he can afford to.
Yeah, you can
I know
afford
we've
to. Yeah,
spoken before about it's a
yeah,
nice job
yeah.
to get sacked in because he can get well compensated, but Rooney's
Nice.
supposedly waived that. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
what do you think?
borrow
Just
a few quid off the missus for being in the jungle.
well,
I'll be
yeah,
honest with you, it's chalk and cheese. I was struggling to get a bonus that I was owed and that I was entitled to, never mind compensation. Um, so it just goes to show you that. But I think like four chances, four decent clubs, four fairly big clubs. Even if you look at Plymouth, big catchment area, how many chances do you need? But it's what
mm,
I've always said. It's about credibility. And why certain people have it and others don't. I can never get to the bottom of it. I think he's had what's he's had? He's had four decent jobs. What do you have? Derby, Birmingham, Washington,
and Plymouth,
and Plymouth. Yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, it's nice little CV. Be interesting to see whether he goes in again, and or more to the point whether he gets another opportunity because he's just you know, I don't know what went on in the States, but at least three out of the four, he hasn't done very well.
No, I think he's down in the sort of 25% win ratio. I think his best win ratio is in the States. I have to double check that, but I'm
Mm,
sure I'm sure he'll pitch up somewhere. There'll be, like you've said many
yeah,
times, there'll be an owner, chairman, whatever,
yeah.
who'll think,
Oh, we got
yeah,
Wayne Rooney. Yeah,
what about Wayne Rooney? Let's have a little chat. That'll be what a profile that'll be for our club.
yeah.
I'm sure he'll turn up somewhere. Right, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there. So thank you again from me all. We will be back soon, hopefully, a week, maybe 2 weeks to speak about maybe the FA Cup games, certainly another round of Premier League. But in the meantime, please watch the back catalogue from this season. Continue to share and subscribe and like, show other people, get them involved. And once again, thanks for your support and your loyalty.
Right, cheers, Rob. Thanks everyone for your time and little thing. What Rob said, yeah, probably a good shout because then it will show if you go back through the back catalogue some of the stuff that was predicted or highlighted. Um, Shock horror probe. Some of it came true. Most of it came true. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks everyone. See you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers
Good
for your
night.
time again, Rob. Good night.